Let's talk Fonjis. So not everyone loves a Fonji, but you have to admit it's a fairly popular move. So in this tutorial, we're gonna break down the technique that's needed for a successful Fonji, as well as several drills, tips, and techniques that we can work on, whether you actually want to do the whole move itself, or you just want to understand the mechanics for maybe the students that you teach, or maybe you want to slowly build up the mechanics for when you're ready for it at a later date. Regardless, all this information will be great for you and your training. Fonjis are a very dynamic move, and they're actually not as hard as you'd think, but they are very technical. And if you use good technique, then the move is very natural, if you will. So when we're doing this, it's very important that you have a spotter, possibly even a mat if you can, and just make sure that you're in a good mind frame when you're attempting this. We don't want anything to go wrong, but just like any aerial equipment, things can. So please use precaution and know your body and know your own ability to accomplish this move and take the necessary precautions. So I'm going to show you a full Fonji, which means that there's two parts. There's the beginning where I snap out, turn, that's phase one, catch, here comes phase two, swing, lift, and back to where I started from. So those two parts equal a full Fonji. There you go. Let's begin with a little bit of geometry. So the pole is vertical, the floor is horizontal. When they come together, they create a perpendicular angle. So this is 90 degrees. And when we work with Fonjis, we want to work in a range of about 45 to 50 degrees. So what does that mean? If I were to start at the base of the pole and split the angle right up the middle, that's going to be 45 degrees. Now, why is this important? There's two pieces to the Fonji. There is the lift up and there's the lift out. And if I go straight up, I don't have enough time to turn my body. But if I go straight out, I don't have enough space or airtime to turn my body. So those two parts are equally important. And when we aim for the 45-degree angle, 45 or 50-degree angle, that's going to give us up and out. And that is the place where we defy gravity. That's where we have that moment of weightlessness, which allows us to complete the turn. So the first thing we're going to focus on is where is that angle and how do I feel it? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay down on the floor and we're going to lift our hips up to a candlestick position on the pole. We're going to squeeze super tight. What does that mean? It means I'm squeezing my legs together, squeezing in my butt cheeks, and then pressing my hips forward so that I'm in a neutral spine. Now, I don't want to be like this, and I don't want to be like this. So I want to be nice and neutral. Finding that position and holding it sometimes is a little bit more challenging than we expect. So I'm going to lay in a candlestick nice and high. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my body out and then bring it back in. So this is great conditioning for a lot of different things, but we're going to use it to find the awareness of that 45 degree angle and then pull it back up. So this is going to be very challenging, but let's try. So first we're just going to start with the candlestick. Go out as far as you can and then bring it back in. My legs are lifted up. I'm gonna pull in through my arms, lift my pelvis up to the pole, body is nice and close. Now from here, I lower out, pull back in, not bad. Lower out, pull back in. Let's see if I can go a little bit further. Pull back in. A little bit further. That's my 45. Bring it back in. Let's do it again. There's my 45. Bring it back in. Now, going out is definitely easier than pulling it back in. So we do our best. If you go out and you notice that you go out and then your butt drops, then you've gone too far, because the goal is to work on the strength of our plank position. There's kind of two goals: strengthening the plank and then finding the 45. So this kind of has two parts. So maybe first you just start with the plank and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and eventually you get to the 45. Now, what happens if I go out to the 45 and then I can't bring it back in? So I go out and I go, ugh, and I just come back down. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you wanted to do it in just that one part, up and out, that's totally fine. But the challenge is for you to come back. It's just building more awareness, more muscle memory, and it's teaching you how to have your body in that nice tight plank position while your arms are nice and solid and giving you that stable base in order for you to manipulate the lower half of your body. So let me show you some things not to do. So we don't want to do this. This is not good. This is not good. Tight and a little bit out, and then, oh, not good. So we go up, squeeze a little bit, oh. Not good. Tight, out, in. What happens if I go out and then I go, oh? Try not to, try to pull it back in, even if it's only a little bit. Let me show you one more right one. Up, squeeze, tight, 45, pull it back up. It's gonna take practice, and that's okay. That's why you're here, and that's why we're learning together. So when we look for that 45-degree angle, you need to make sure you have a really strong shoulder mount. And when we're in our shoulder mount, we want our hips to be parallel to the floor. So in other words, sometimes when you see people do shoulder mounts, they're at a slightly elevated angle. But I really want you to focus on parallel to the floor with your bum. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And to do that, I really need to squeeze in with the arms, with the pecs, and keep the core very, very tight so that everything is locked and loaded, and I'm like a spring ready to compress and then explode. So the shoulder mount position. Here, notice that my hips are parallel to the floor. I'm not too high and I'm not too low. The hips are parallel, arms are pulled in, core is tight. Now, something that's really important when you're in that compact position is that we're using our hip flexors and we're pulling our legs towards our body. So we want to think about compressing and making a pancake. So if my legs are angled up, I'm not going to get a good spring-loaded action, which is, if you think about a spring. So if I have a spring in my hand, like a little coiled spring, and I press down and I compact that spring, I'm building a lot of energy into it. As soon as I release my hand, that spring is going to go boom. So we want our body to react the same way. So in order to get that spring-like pop, I really need to pull in with the upper body, the core, and engage through the hip flexors, pulling my legs down, pulling my quads towards my torso, making myself a flat pancake, like I have a window above me and below me, and it's squishing me together. So I'm really pulling my muscles in, loading into my spring, which is going to be in my hips and my core and my arms, and really compacting and really building that energy. Now, from this position, we're just going to practice how to compress the hips. So I want you to think about that spring. You squeeze, and you're not a full release yet. You're just compressing. So when we go up into our shoulder mount, we're going to practice lifting the legs up just a little bit and then pulling them back down. And it's a little bit of a bounce. We're going to use the core, the arms, the hip flexors, and the legs to compress and release like a little spring. We're going to create like a bouncing motion with the body. And I just want you to practice that a few times so you can feel the sensation of building the energy in your body. Hips are horizontal, pulling the legs in, and compress, 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 compress. Now notice when I'm doing that my upper body is staying where it is and my hips are still parallel to the floor, and I'm compressing and building the energy while I'm maintaining the strength and stability of my upper body. That's very important. Now this time we're going to do the compression, and then we're going to snap our legs up and try to find that 45 or 50-degree angle in a plank position. When you go into a plank position, it's very important that your body is nice and tight. If my chest is rounded or my back is rounded, if my hips are piked and a little bit extended, or piked back rather, that's going to cause us to be less aerodynamic. And we want to be as aerodynamic as possible because we have that much time to twist our whole body and then re-catch the pole. So we need to make sure that our snap is super quick to that 45-degree angle and it's nice and tight. Now, a couple things. When you snap to that 45-degree angle, do you have to hold it? No. So I'm not asking you to go compress, snap, hold. That's crazy talk. I just want you to snap to it and then come back down. Because when we actually do the Fonji, you don't hold in that position. You find it, twist, and then you're on the second half. So it's very important that you just get to the angle and then come down. Now, as we practice finding that angle, you might notice that maybe your legs go too high, maybe they go out too, they go too far away, they're not lifted up enough, and that's just part of the process. So I first want you to see if you can find that 45, 50-degree angle, and then I'll also share some tips with you and some other strengthening moves that might help you if you're struggling to find that 45, or if you need to build your strength to hold in the 45-degree position. So we're going to go into our shoulder mount, compress into the hips, and then we're going to snap into that plank position, not holding, but just nailing the position and then coming back down. Compress, snap. Now notice, I just went out and I came back down. I didn't drop myself or fall out of it. I controlled myself down. I didn't try to squeeze, control, wait. It was just hit and release. You might notice a little bit of pressure on your collarbone, and that's fine for right now. We're really just trying to find the angle. Now, problems that you might have, let me show you what it looks like to go too high and what it looks like to go too far out. too high and too low. And those may seem really obvious, but as you're beginning, trying to find your awareness of where your body is in space, and that understanding might take a few tries. Now notice that when I went into the shoulder mount, I compressed into my hips. Here, compress them in like I was trying to make a pancake with my body, nice and flat. And then I did one compression, and then I snapped my body out. Now I didn't arch here. I just squeezed my butt cheeks, squeezed in my core. My legs go from a straddle to a tight body, legs together position. Okay, so they go straddle, close. Let me show you one more time. Now, the more power you have at that nice upper angle, the more time you have to not only complete the turn, which is obviously important, but the most important part is how we catch. So a lot of people can do a nice quick turn, but their bodies are too low, making it very difficult to properly catch for the return of the Fonji. So having that nice tight body at that nice elevated angle is going to help you with your speed, your power, your lift, your turn, and your catch. And a lot of people don't realize that. So that 45-50 is one of the most important parts of the Fonji, then legs together as well. So just like we did the shoulder mount, compress and snap, we can do that on the base of the pole as well. Now, if you want to use a towel or something to protect your shoulder, you can, because it can be a little bit uncomfortable. But it's the same technique that we did when we were standing. The difference is going to be when we're on the floor and my butt is on the floor, you'll notice that the legs come up at an angle. So what we need to do is still think about doing that aerial shoulder mount where we squeeze in through the body and we actually lift our hips up so we're fully engaged, and we're going to be hovering right above the floor. I'll show you what that looks like. So coming down to the base of the pole, if I were to just lift my legs up with my butt on the pole, notice that this is the wrong angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in my arms, squeeze my elbows, engage in my core here, and now it's like I'm doing a shoulder mount, but I'm nice and low. Now from here, notice that I'm hovering above the floor. Now we're going to do the hover, and we're going to snap to 45 degrees, nice and low on the floor. Pulling up, compress, snap, and back down. Now, like I said, because we're on the floor, which kind of restricts our movement a little bit, you'll notice a little bit of extra pressure on the collarbone, so feel free to protect your bone. It's totally fine. So some people think it's easier to do low. Some people think it's harder. It's just another way to do it. If your muscles are tired and you're fatigued and you notice that you're dropping your butt a lot when you do the version standing up, you can always come down to the floor, and that's going to really make you hypersensitive and really focus on what the core is doing and how to lift the hips. But that's a great way for you to feel maybe a little bit safer, a little bit more confident, still working on that plank position, but doing it nice and low to the ground and on the floor. Hi. For this next drill, we're going to lay on the floor. We're going to lift our legs up, straight up to the ceiling, with our hips and buttocks on the floor. Now what we're going to do is we're going to thrust our pelvis and hips up, and as we do that, our legs, as our pelvis lifts, our legs drop to 45. So it's a combination of pop, back down, pop, back down. So what we're doing is we're isolating the pelvic thrust, And we're lifting up as we go and then also lowering the body. This might be a challenging drill, but it's a really good opportunity for you to work on your pelvic thrust, as well as finding that 45-degree angle. Now, if you have someone to spot you, they could hold your feet and help you lift up as well. So you could do it with a partner. But I'm going to show you today how to do it on your own. So we start on the floor, gripping like we would for our shoulder mount, and then we have our feet up here, creating a 90-degree angle through my hips. Now what we're going to do is we're going to thrust the hips and pelvis up, but lower the legs and the feet to that 45-degree angle. So we're working on the pop connection. So I really have to engage in and pull through my arms as well. So I'm going to come up, pop, pop, pop. Remember, it's short, sweet, and powerful. The idea is not to hold the position. The idea is to find it with a quickness, with a tight body, and to notice what it feels like to do that quick, tight extension of the body so that we become nice and aerodynamic for our twist. Let's talk about the actual twist of the Fonji. There's a couple different ways you can do it, and I would say that there's no right or wrong way. It just kind of depends on what technique you use. So one form is to, when you snap out and you do your twist, you catch. And notice that I would stay on the same plane right here. I'm not changing even as I twist. My body is still in alignment with the pole. Now you'll watch some people and they will go and they'll come in, and as they snap out, they turn and make a 90-degree angle. So it's almost like they come up here, and instead of twisting and staying in alignment, what happens is sometimes they twist too soon, or the angle of their legs shoots over to the side. So they'll come in here, and as they rotate, they end up doing a quarter turn with the pole. And like I said, I don't know that there is necessarily a right or wrong way. It's just a slightly different technique. It might depend on if your body is bent over, or whether you're getting a nice tight plank position. That could be one factor that contributes to the 90-degree turn. It's just something to think about and sort of remember as you're going, and check in and see which direction your body is going. Let's talk about the direction of the Fonji and what the turn itself looks like. So I like using my left shoulder. So the arm that's on top in my shoulder mount, I'm going to turn towards the bottom arm. And as I turn, my shoulder comes off. The bottom hand or the lower hand is going to slide down, and the top arm opens up. Bottom arm drops, top arm elbow over the pole, and then as I come in, I'm going to squeeze back, and then notice the bottom arm. You want it to be down, and then you also want to have your shoulder turned in. So if you notice when I catch here, a lot of people will catch like this. Now notice the orientation of where my arm is to the pole. You can see my chest, and my arm is on the side of the pole. So when I come down, a lot of times, this is what happens, that our lower half of the body just goes into the pole. It's not very supportive because this bottom arm is on the side of the pole. Now, can you do it that way? Yes. Should you do it that way? Maybe. A lot of people can make it work, but if you can, it would be an easier time, and we want to work smarter, not harder. So it would be more beneficial to you that instead of catching here with my arm to the side, that this hand be rotated behind the pole, and then the shoulder is dropped down, so you can see the difference here where my shoulder is down, the elbow is behind the pole, and the arm is slightly bent. Now, if my shoulders are turned directly towards the floor here, it's a full half turn. It's a full 180 degrees. But the Fonji actually isn't 180. It's less. So if you notice, I'm going to do it this direction so you can see the difference. When I'm here and I come over, as I come down, look at my body position. So this here would be fully to the ground with a 180-degree turn. That's too much. My arm is going to come to the side and I'm going to slam my body into the pole. So as you rotate, your body lifts. That bottom arm, as it comes down, it stays behind the pole. The arm goes over and the shoulder stays down. We want the shoulder down because that allows us to keep the elbow in, and this becomes a nice strong fulcrum for us. This becomes kind of like our access point. Now, when it's here, notice that I can put all my weight into this arm, and this forearm is stable and strong. Now, the problem that you need to be aware of or cautious of is if I don't get my arm down low enough, this is going to happen. And I've seen this a lot, where the arm is too high, the arm is behind the pole, which is good, but when they catch, there's a lot of strain on the inner part of the forearm. And that's because there's such a severe angle on the wrist, and it sends a lot of pressure, and some people have like a nervy feeling when they catch. So what we want to do is make sure that bottom arm is low so that it's not straight, but it's got a little bit of a bend. From here, what I want you to practice, trigger finger down, shoulder turned in, arm slightly bent. And I want you to keep the shoulder turned and then find the pocket. So it's not the side and it's not the front. It's almost like a 45-degree angle into this soft, mushy part right here. And it might be a little uncomfortable at first, but it's pole. A lot of things are uncomfortable the first few times you try them. So what we want to do is we're behind the pole, taking your finger down, shoulder turned in, and we're going to practice catch, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. Now from here, I want you to lift up on your tippy toes, reach the arm up and over here, and that's how we want to catch. If you can see from this angle here. So we have the arm down, body is twisted, coming in here. Out, in, out, in. And then when I come in, going up and over, this is how we want to catch. So I'm going to show you what it looks like facing away from you so you can see the angle a little bit differently. You can see the angle from the side, which shows you the 45 that we're looking for. But when you look at it straight on, maybe you can see the angles a little bit differently. Let's talk about the catch and how to work on the swing, because the second half of the Fonji is equally as important, and you want to make sure that you have good technique as well. So we talked about having the hand behind the pole, just like you would in a handspring or an Aisha. You don't put your hand to the side in Aisha like this. The hand is behind the pole. So it's the same concept when you're working on the second half for the cast. So we practiced the technique where we had the shoulder down and we came in and back out. We're going to do the same thing, but I want you to do one climb because it's going to feel different on the floor than it does when you're in the air. So we're going to do one climb. Now from here, I'm going to reach over, and then this hand needs to slide between my legs. Now notice the placement of my shoulder. Now this is not going to be right. So what I need to do is as I take the pressure off of my legs, I'm going to take the hand behind, drop this shoulder down here. Now I'm pressing into the bottom arm, pulling the top one back, and I just want you to swing your legs nice and easy, making sure that you're holding nice and strong. Now, the legs are really important. So as much as the arms are important for the catch, the legs are equally as important. We have all this energy that we built up in the compression, in the snap, in the twist. When we catch at that nice high position with the hand behind the pole here, as my legs come down, if I'm piking in my hips, then I'm just going to go, and I'm just going to jab my elbow into my body like this. Bleh. That's going to kill all the momentum, all the power, and all the speed that we just worked so hard to build. So what we want to think about is this elbow, this connection point. It's kind of like our energy saver. So we build this energy, we pop, we're flying in the air, we twist. As we come down, that energy has to go somewhere. And we don't want it to just go into the pole and then die. We want the energy to continue so that we have power for the second half. Now, if I'm catching like this at an angle, my legs are going to drop the speed. They're going to slow down. So what you want to think about is catching here. Notice that the leg is behind the hip here, not like this where the leg is in front, but behind. And as I catch, my leg is tight and my butt cheek is engaged. They're muscles. Did you know that? They're cute, but they're also muscles, and they're important muscles. So when I catch, your butt is squeezing nice and tight, and then the leg, what does it do? It, as you catch in your elbow, the leg continues. The energy goes into the elbow, through the hand, pushing strong, squeezing with that top elbow, pulling yourself into the armpit. And then what happens? The leg here, relaxes. Let it keep going, 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 going as high as it'll go. And then from here, you use the leg to go back the other direction. We have all that power and it's still contained in our body. So the leg comes up. Now from here, the leg goes back, 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 back. Now right here, my glute starts to engage. Here, the glute engages, engages, engages. And then we're gonna go, boom, and we're gonna push off the hand. But the leg makes this really nice swinging motion. It's very fluid and it's relaxed. Yes, it's strong and powerful, but it's fluid. It has a nice swing to it here. So in other words, we're not going, we're not doing that. We're trying our best to keep it nice and fluid like this, okay? Now, when the heel comes into alignment with the glute, as those two, here's my heel, here's my glute. As the heel comes up, boom, in alignment with the glute, squeeze, boom, powerful. That's going to keep you lifting. Now, once you have that engagement, what happens from here is that I'm pushing through the arm. The arm pushes at an angle, so it's not into the pole. It's like you're pushing through. It's a constant engagement with the arm. It's not this quick little boom. It's not that. It's like you have something and you're constantly push, 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 all the way through. So it comes through the entire arm, comes all the way through, down into the lat. So everything becomes this nice line of muscle contraction and power. And then this is happening while your legs are coming up. Legs come up, arm pushes, and then what happens? Your core goes, whoop. So it's like someone was gonna punch me. What would I do? I wouldn't like, okay, do it. And I also wouldn't do this, right? I would brace for the impact. So I would go, whoop. So that's what I want you to think about. The leg swings, the connection between the heel and the butt, push through the arm, and as I push, boom, tight in the core. So I'm going to show you a couple swings. the catch is so important. I want you to start very slow. So first, find your position, and then nice and easy, let the legs swing. And then start adding the power, and then start adding a little bit of a push and practice. How do I push? Reconnect. Push, reconnect. And every time you reconnect, you're gonna have to mentally think about push, reconnect, shoulder down. Push, down, push, down. So that we have fluid motion, tight contraction of muscles, but everything is working as a team, and it has a nice flow and it has a rhythm to it. There's a rhythm that's going to help you, boom, up, down, boom, up, down. It has almost like a rhythm, like a breath. So that's the rhythm that we're trying to go for. So I'm going to show you small and then work into it. Remember, I'm coming up and over, dropping the hand, finding the weight. Now, small, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. Up, up, up. Now let's talk about the angle on the upswing. So the first part was snap 45, turn, swing, legs come up. Now let's talk about the return angle. Legs are up here nice and high. Swing, back, 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 back. Legs come up where? 45. Why? That's the point of weightlessness. Come up, 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 up. Now here on the lift, as I turn my body, I come back down into that contracted core. So what happens if I go too soon, which is usually the problem when people do Fonjis for the second half, is they go up and they get so eager and they push straight out. What happens is the legs don't get high enough on this side of the pole. So they come up and then they try to turn their body, but as they turn, their body drops down to the floor, which means it's really heavy landing on the shoulder, as well as it's really hard to keep your hips up. So what we want to practice is that 45-degree lift up as high as we can. The higher we go, the more weightless, effortless, and easy it's going to look. So I come up, up, up. Right here, my trajectory is continuing up. So when I go to do that half turn, the body is still lifting as I push, because my body is a team, and I built the swing, I built the push, I built the tight core. Everything is rising up, and then that quick turn to catch back into that straddle position. So let's talk about the catch on the second half. So what does that direction and that turn look like? So when I catch here, what happens is my legs come up, and then from here, this arm that's on the bottom is going to drop the shoulder, and then remove the hand, dip the shoulder down, squeeze into the arms, and then catch again in that pancake position, so that again, you can connect them and keep going in one fluid motion and keep doing as many as you'd like to do. In theory, we don't lose a whole lot of ground or a whole lot of height, because every time we lift, we should be roughly in the same spot. We might come down a little bit, and that's totally fine. But the idea is that we have a nice, powerful lift and thrust that as we turn, pop, pop, down, lift, up, boom, that we should stay in about the same range on the pole. When you're practicing for the second half, it's really important that you try to get up as high as you can to that 45-degree angle. Can you do it a little bit less? Can you still complete the Fonji lower than 45? Yes. It might be a little bit heavier, it might be a little bit more difficult. So 45 is your goal. And that requires a lot of patience and a lot of constant push through the arm. It's an ongoing push. It's not just a short, stunted, like a grunt. It's a keep going. So I want to show you the tempo and the height that we're looking for as we do the swinging. The higher we go, the easier it's going to be. Really try to make sure that you keep that shoulder twisted down so the elbow stays in. So you have that constant push out and then the catch in again. Very important piece of the puzzle when you're doing the second half. Fonjis are not as bad as you think, but they are very technical, and it's best to do them with as much proper technique as you can. Not only will it look better, but it's going to feel a lot better on your body. I hope when it's your turn to try doing the whole thing that you remember to have mats and a spotter. Record yourself so that you can replay what you did to see where your errors were, and then work it in 2 parts. So work the first part, work the second part, and as those become individually more fluid, then you work on the connection, putting it together. But I hope you have a great time. Fonjis are a fun move, and they're both powerful and dynamic. And Piccolo agrees. He supports both of us doing Fonjis, don't you? You can do it. Have fun, enjoy the practice, make sure you train smart and safe. Good luck. Slater likes Fonjis too.